My name is Jacob Mayrand, a student in MBA 741, and I'm accompanied by my friend Dan here. Dan is probably one of the most interesting people I know, not to mention he's practically a scientist. Welcome, Dan.
Okay.
Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised, where you went to college, and any other exciting facts that we might want to know.
All right. Well, I was born in 1957 in West Bend, Wisconsin, and I was the youngest of three children. I went to Decorah School in first grade, went to McLean School from second to fifth grade, then I went to Green Tree School in sixth grade, Silverbrook in seventh and eighth, and West Bend East High School. I graduated in 1975. Then I went to school at UW Washington County for 1 year, and then I transferred to Madison. I finished up 3.5 years later in December of 1979.
Ooh, Badger.
With a degree in chemical engineering. So,
Could you describe the neighborhood you grew up in? What were some of the things you do for fun as a child growing up or as a teenager there?
well, we had a big family across the street. They were the Kissingers, and then 2 houses away there was another family with a lot of kids, and their name was the Luckins. Well, I think one of the most unique things about the neighborhood that I grew up in was that, you know, it was very stable. There was very few people that came and went. You know, the people that, because my parents built their house, just about everybody else that lived there had what was the family that built the house that they were living in.
Mm-hmm.
So there was virtually no turnover of anybody, and we played baseball or, you know, kickball or whatever right out in the street. And when anyone went on vacation, then the neighbors would decorate their yard so that when they came back, they played a trick on them. You know, one time and when the Kissingers went on vacation, somebody put an outhouse on their front yard, and Mr. Kissinger and his brothers were home builders. They ran Kissinger Construction, and so they put a sign on the front of this outhouse, and it said, "Another one going up by Kissinger Construction."
Sounds shitty.
Yeah.
I love it. All right.
So,
What
Yeah.
were some of the responsibilities you had while growing up in your house? Your chores?
well, we always had to help wash dishes. There was no dishwasher. My parents never had a dishwasher, even up until the time that, you know, they no longer lived in the house. So they never had a dishwasher. So we always had to help with the dishes. Usually you considered yourself fortunate if you could be the one that put the dishes away. There was the one washed, and another one had to dry the dishes, and then another one had to put the dishes away. So Saturdays we usually cleaned the bedrooms, you know, the floor, or swept the floor, you know, dusted and stuff like that.
Okay.
So usually on Saturdays I had to do house chores. In summer, I almost always had swimming lessons, and those were at Regner Park, and we always rode our bikes to go to swimming lessons at Regner Park. There was it was, you know, like a pond.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, thinking back on, you know, we always rode our bikes there, but we had to go across, you know, busy streets and highways, and parents didn't seem to mind us, you know, first and second graders riding our bikes, you know, across town. They
Right.
didn't seem to mind,
Right.
you know. I could think that's different from today. And then
Yeah.
I had to help out on the farm too. So
Okay. What would you say the biggest difference in the world was between when you were growing up versus now? Is there anything that really sticks out in your mind that seems vastly different as far as, is it how people act? Is it something society?
Well, I think there was, I was expected to do a lot of physical labor, both housework, work outside the house, and work at my grandparents' farm. They farmed. My mom would not live on a farm, so we lived in town, but I had to help. We were expected to help. In the evening, I would frequently go out and help milk the cows. I didn't have to do the milking, but I had to carry the milk from the barn into the milk cooler. So there was a lot of, there was a lot of physical labor. When we or harvesting the hay, the oats, the corn, we had to help with all that.
So you grew up on a farm, right? Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
So growing up as a farm boy, and then you went to school for chemical engineering. What made you decide to take that path? Was it something that interested you? Were you in it for the money? Was there...
Well, my brother went into engineering, and my parents and my grandparents always thought that he was probably the smartest kid in the family. So I wanted to prove to them that I was pretty smart too. So, and that's probably the main reason why I went to school and became a chemical engineer, is to show them that I could do what my brother had already done.
Sure, absolutely.
So.
Okay. What age did you get married at? What was your wedding like? Do you have any marital advice for the younger generation?
Oh, I didn't get married until I was 33. So, and I met Amy through what was called the Heartlines, which was a section in the paper, in the newspaper. There was no internet or anything like that, so you had to write a letter, and then you would submit it to the person that had written the Heartline ad, and that's how I met Amy. I wrote a letter, and she answered it, or she called me up and she said she wanted to go out on a date with me, and I said, well, I'd love to go on a date with you, but I have plans to go snowmobiling this weekend. So we went out on a Monday. We went out on a Monday instead of on.
I mean, is there anything you want to add? You can definitely, if there's anything important you think that you think should be known about. I mean, growing up a couple decades ago versus today.
Well, I guess the thing that I've noticed that's different is that I always expected that when you started at the bottom and you worked its way up. You worked your way up. I think what I've learned from doing stuff or giving advice to Ryan especially is that he doesn't think you have to start at the bottom and work your way up to the top, He
Sure.
You work your way up from the bottom to the top. Now you can just pretty much get a start and go right to the top.
Right, get a start. Yeah.
It seems like money is much more readily available. When I was a kid, I didn't know of anybody that had parents that had a lot of money. They all lived within their means. I think that's why the older houses are much smaller than the new houses. Because people knew what they could afford, and they knew what they needed to get started, and they started small, and then they worked their way up very, very gradually.
Right. Yeah. We're definitely living a lot more comfortable nowadays, I feel like, than in the past.
In the hometown that I grew up in, there was an entire subdivision that was built with just the basements. People built a basement, they put a roof on top of their basement, and they lived in the basement until they could afford to build the house.
Oh, wow, I didn't know
So
that.
that was that area. It was called Gopherville, and it was called Gopherville because that's what people in that subdivision did. They didn't have a lot of the people they wanted to build a house. They wanted to have their own house. They didn't have a lot of money, so they built the basement and they put a cap on it and they lived in the basement. And then when they could afford to build the house, then they built the house on top of it.
Interesting.
Some of those persisted for 25, 30 years because people got used to living in their basement and they didn't think they needed to build a house. But
Wow.
now all those houses, there's all houses there, but that was called Gopherville.
Huh.
So
Interesting. I did not know that. Okay, well, we're really pressing our time limit here, so I'll let
okay.
you go. But like I said, I appreciate the time taken for this interview. You gave me some really good answers. I think we learned a lot.
yeah,
And yeah, thank you.
okay.